The valise hit the mud with a wet slap. Clara Whitmore stood frozen on the platform of Red Mesa Depot, her fingers still outstretched toward the handle. Around her, a dozen faces stared, mouths open, eyes sharp with judgment. Thomas Garrett turned his back. The man who'd written her 3 letters, who'd promised a new life, walked away without looking at her twice. "I asked for a wife," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not this." The crowd pressed closer. A woman whispered behind her hand. A man laughed short, cruel. Clara's corset dug into her ribs as she tried to breathe. Her fingers went white around her reticule. $3.50. That's all she had left. No ticket home. No room at the boarding house. Nowhere to go. A cold voice cut through the afternoon heat. "Well, I never... Martha Coldwell, you were right about these mail-order types." Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. Clara grabbed her valise and ran. She didn't look back at the faces, didn't acknowledge the whispers that followed her down Main Street like hissing snakes. Her boots splashed through mud puddles. Her breath came in short gasps. The town was smaller than she'd imagined. 24 buildings, half of them weathered gray by desert winds. The hotel keeper took one look at her and shook his head. "No rooms? I can pay." I said no rooms. He shut the door. 3 more boarding houses, 3 more refusals. By the time the sun began its descent behind the mesa, Clara found herself behind the grain depot, sitting on an overturned crate. She opened her reticule with shaking hands. $3.50. Maybe enough for 3 days of food if she was careful. Her stomach clenched, not from hunger, though she hadn't eaten since dawn, but from the secret she carried. The reason her dress fit differently than it had 6 months ago. Night fell fast in the desert. The temperature dropped to 20 degrees in an hour. Clara wrapped her shawl tighter, but the thin wool did nothing against the cold that seeped into her bones. She pulled her knees to her chest and tried not to think about how far Boston was, how impossible the journey back would be. Footsteps crunched on gravel. An old man appeared around the corner of the depot, lantern in hand. 70 at least, with a weathered face and kind eyes. He stopped when he saw her. "You the one Garrett rejected?" Clara's throat tightened. She nodded. "Can you work?" "Yes, sir. Red Mesa livery needs help. I'm Henderson. You can sleep in the loft above the stable. Meals at noon. $2 a week." Clara stood so fast she swayed. "Thank you. Thank you. I... Save it." He turned to go, then paused. Newtown law just passed. Mail-order brides who get refused have 90 days to leave Red Mesa. His eyes met hers. "That gives you till autumn. Make it count." The stable loft smelled of hay and horse sweat. Clara climbed the rough ladder, her legs trembling. She laid down on the straw, pulling her shawl over her shoulders. Below, in the darkness, something moved. A shadow. Tall, broad-shouldered, standing perfectly still, watching the stable door. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She pressed herself flat against the hay, not daring to breathe. Who was down there and why were they watching? The rooster crowed at 4:30. Clara was already awake, had been for an hour, listening to the horses shift in their stalls below. She climbed down the ladder, her muscles stiff from the hard floor. 12 stalls, 12 horses that needed feeding, watering, mucking out. She found the pitchfork and got to work. By the time Henderson arrived at 6, sweat plastered her dress to her back. He nodded once, said nothing, and handed her a biscuit wrapped in cloth. "You'll do," was all he offered. The work was brutal. Her hands blistered by noon. But Clara kept her head down, kept moving. When she finished the stalls, she scrubbed the water troughs. When she finished those, she organized the tack room. No one could say she didn't earn her keep. She was brushing down a gray mare when the woman arrived. Silk dress, impossibly thin waist, eyes like chips of flint. She stepped into the stable as though she owned it, her gaze sweeping over Clara with open disgust. "Mr. Henderson." Her voice could cut glass. "You're not seriously employing that woman." Henderson continued oiling a saddle. "Miss Martha, what can I do for you?" "I need a carriage for Thursday." Martha Coldwell. Clara had heard the name whispered, moved closer. "Though I'm concerned about the reputation of any establishment that would hire." "Well," she gestured at Clara, "she looks like she ate the real bride." Clara's hand stilled on the brush. The mare nickered softly. "Miss Martha," Henderson said without looking up, "mind your business." Martha's smile was sharp and cold. "Oh, I'm just concerned for the town's moral standards, Mr. Henderson. Surely you understand." After she left, Clara's hands shook. She pressed her forehead against the mare's warm neck and breathed. "Don't let her get to you." Henderson muttered, "Martha Coldwell thinks God made Red Mesa just for her." The next morning, Clara found split firewood stacked beside the stable door. She hadn't cut it. Henderson's arthritis was too bad for chopping. So the morning after that, the broken latch on the tack room door had been repaired. Fresh nails. Good work. Clara asked Henderson about it. He just smiled. "Somebody's looking out for you, girl." The pattern continued. 3 eggs appeared on her makeshift table in the loft, still warm, as if they'd just been gathered. A water barrel she'd been struggling to move was relocated overnight. Small kindnesses. Invisible hands. Then she saw him. Early morning, before dawn broke, a man leading his horse from the end stall, tall, lean, a scar on his chin, catching the lantern light. He moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who didn't waste motion. Never looked at her. Never spoke. Just saddled his horse and rode out toward the ranches east of town. "That's Ethan Cole," Henderson said when she asked. "Works cattle at the Morrison Ranch. Keeps his horse here." He paused. "Lost everything 3 years back." "Don't push him." "Lost what?" "Everything that matters." Ethan came every morning at 5. Clara learned to time her work so she could watch him, the careful way he checked his horse's hooves, the gentle hand on the animal's neck. He had to know she was there, up in the loft. But he never acknowledged her. Until the day she was humming. She didn't realize she was doing it an old lullaby her grandmother used to sing. She was mending a bridle, fingers working the leather, voice soft. She looked up. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, his face gone white. For a moment, something broke open in his expression. Raw grief, desperate longing. Then he turned and walked out, leaving his horse unsaddled. Henderson watched him go. "That song," he said quietly. His little girl loved that song. A week into her employment, another visitor arrived, Deputy Frank Miller. Badge gleaming, beard unkempt, eyes that lingered too long in the wrong places. He claimed to be checking licenses, but he stood too close when he talked, his breath sour with whiskey. "A woman alone needs protection," he said, blocking her path. "I could help with that." Clara stepped back. "No, thank you." "Deputy?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Wasn't really asking, sweetheart." "Frank." Henderson appeared from the office. "Git." Frank left, but he looked back through the window. Watching. Always watching. That night, Clara counted her earnings. $2 for the week. She'd made 50 cents sewing a torn dress for the woman who ran the boarding house, Mrs. Maple, who'd actually been kind. $2.50 total. She needed $500 for a doctor when the baby came. At this rate, she'd have it by never. Clara pressed her hand to her stomach, felt the flutter of movement beneath her palm. 4 months along, maybe 5. Soon she wouldn't be able to hide it. Below, in the stable. A sound. Footsteps. The creak of the door. She peered through the floorboards. Deputy Frank, lantern in hand, rifling through her belongings near the tack room. "I know she's hiding something," he muttered to himself. Mail order brides always do. Clara's hand flew to the hidden pocket in her skirt, the $200 in gold coins sewn into the hem of her best dress, her grandmother's final gift. Frank moved closer to where her valise sat. Frank left empty-handed that night. Clara had moved the dress with the hidden gold just hours before, tucking it under the loose floorboard beneath her bedroll. Luck. Pure luck. But luck, she was learning, could shift. Mrs. Maple returned 3 days later with 2 friends. "My daughter needs a dress for her wedding," one said. "Mrs. Maple showed me the work you did. Beautiful stitching. $1.50 per dress." Clara's hands cramped from the fine needlework. But she didn't complain. By the end of the second week, she'd sewn 5 dresses, $7.50. The owner of the Red Mesa restaurant stopped by the stable. "Could you make tablecloths? I'll pay $5 for 6 of them." $5. Clara worked until 11 each night, her needle flashing in candlelight. Her fingers bled from where she'd stabbed herself in exhaustion. But she kept going. When she delivered the tablecloths, perfectly hemmed with tiny, even stitches, the owner handed her the money without hesitation. "You do good work, Miss Whitmore." Miss Whitmore. Not that woman. Not the fat one. For the first time since the train depot, Clara felt something like hope unfurl in her chest. She counted her money each night. $12, $15, $18. At this rate, she might actually reach 500 by October. The work at the stable became routine. She knew which horses were gentle, which ones needed careful handling. She knew the rhythm of Henderson's cough, worse in the mornings, better by noon. She knew exactly when Ethan Cole would arrive each day. 5 o'clock. Every morning. Never late. He still didn't speak to her. But on the 15th day, as rain clouds gathered over the mesa, he paused in the stable doorway. "Storm's coming," he said. His voice was deeper than she'd expected. Rougher. "Move the hay bales inside or they'll get soaked." Clara jumped at the sound. "Yes. Thank you." They worked in silence, hauling the heavy bales from the lean-to into the dry storage area. Clara's arms burned. Her back ached. But Ethan worked beside her without complaint, lifting twice as much as she could manage. When they both reached for the same bale, their hands touched. Ethan froze. So did Clara. For 3 seconds, neither moved. His hand was calloused, warm against her cold fingers. Then he pulled back as if burned, his neck flushing red above his collar. "That's the last one," he muttered, and left. But the next morning, there were wildflowers on her makeshift table in the loft, prairie asters, their purple petals still fresh with dew. On the 18th day, Henderson caught her staring at Ethan as he saddled his horse. "He's teaching you to ride this afternoon," Henderson announced. "What I didn't ask, you need to know how. Can't work a livery if you can't handle a horse properly." Henderson's eyes crinkled. "Besides," Ethan volunteered. The meadow east of town was gold in the late afternoon sun. Ethan brought Henderson's gentlest mare, showing Clara how to hold the reins, how to sit, how to move with the animal instead of against it. "Don't grip so tight," he said, his hand steadying her elbow. "Trust her. She'll trust you back." Clara's throat tightened. "I'm not good at trusting." Ethan's eyes met hers, gray, like storm clouds. "Neither am I." They rode in silence as the sun dropped lower. The only sounds were hoofbeats and wind through the grass. Clara found herself relaxing, the constant knot of anxiety in her chest loosening just slightly. When they returned to the stable, Ethan finally spoke again. "You hum that lullaby sometimes. When you're working." Clara's breath caught. My grandmother used to sing it. My daughter loved that song." His jaw worked. "Annabelle, she was 4 when—" He stopped, shook his head. "Anyway, that's why the first time I heard you sing it, I couldn't. I'm sorry, I won't." "No." His voice was firm. "Don't stop. It's good to hear it again." The town was changing toward her. Slowly. Children started waving when she walked to the general store. Pastor Tyler, a tall man with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who'd lived hard years, invited her to Sunday service. "Everyone deserves grace, Miss Whitmore," he said. "Especially those who've been shown none." Even Thomas Garrett, who'd rejected her so publicly, began to appear on the periphery. Clara would catch him watching from across the street. His expression haunted. Once, he started to approach, then stopped himself and walked away. Martha Coldwell's fury grew more obvious. She needed to rent a carriage and was forced to come to the stable, her face pinched with disgust. But she came, and she paid. Small victory. But Henderson's cough worsened. Clara heard him one morning, saw the blood on his handkerchief before he tucked it away. "It's nothing," he said, but his hand shook. "Mrs. Maple pulled Clara aside at the market. His heart's failing. Dr. Patterson said maybe 6 months. He needs rest, but he won't stop working." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in the loft, listening to the horses, thinking about Henderson, about Ethan, about the baby growing inside her, already pressing against her ribs. The nightmare came just before dawn. She was back in Boston. 6 months ago. William's face twisted with anger. "Get rid of it, or I'm gone." Then her father's voice, "You're no daughter of mine." The scene shifted. A year earlier, the first pregnancy. Blood on white sheets, so much blood. Her landlady's disgusted face, sinful girl. Her grandmother's hands, gentle and wrinkled, sewing gold coins into a dress hem. "Go west, sweet pea. This is your chance, your new beginning." Clara woke gasping, her dress soaked with sweat. She pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling the reassuring flutter of life. "I'll keep you safe," she whispered. "I promise." She climbed down to start her day, muscles aching. The morning routine soothed her: feed the horses, muck the stalls, prepare the tack. Ethan arrived at exactly 5 o'clock. This time, he nodded to her, almost smiled. Progress. By evening, Clara had earned another $2 from mending work. She climbed to the loft, ready to add it to her hidden stash. Time to count it all, see how close she was getting to her goal. She pulled up the loose floorboard, reached for the dress. Her fingers found only fabric. She shook the dress, checked the hem, tore at the stitching with trembling hands, empty. The gold coins, $200. Her grandmother's sacrifice, her only safety net, were gone. Clara fell to her knees. The dress crumpled in her fists. The room spun. Someone had been here. Someone had found her hiding place. Someone had stolen everything. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. How would she pay for the doctor for the baby? How would she survive? Clara didn't report the theft. How could she? Where did a mail-order bride, rejected, unwed, get $200 in gold? Questions would lead to answers she couldn't give. She doubled her sewing work instead. Stayed up until 2 in the morning, fingers cramping, eyes burning. The baby kicked harder now, a constant reminder of the clock ticking down. Her dresses no longer fit properly. She let out seams, wore her loosest clothing, but the truth was becoming impossible to hide. Mrs. Maple noticed first. She found Clara one afternoon, pale and swaying after mucking 12 stalls in the heat. "Child, sit down before you fall down." Clara obeyed, legs shaking. Mrs. Maple brought water, studying Clara's face. Her eyes dropped to Clara's middle, to the way the apron pulled tight despite the loose dress beneath. How far along? Clara's eyes filled with tears. She'd held the secret for so long, carried it across a continent, protected it through humiliation and fear. Now, with 2 gentle words, the dam broke. 6 months, she whispered. Almost 6 months. Mrs. Maple pulled her close. "Oh, honey, Thomas didn't reject me for being fat." Clara's voice cracked. "He rejected me for being pregnant." "No, sweetheart." Mrs. Maple smoothed Clara's hair. "Thomas didn't reject you because you're pregnant. He rejected you because his wife died birthing their son 3 years ago. She was heavy-set, well, when he saw you, he saw her, saw that night. The blood, the screaming, coming home to a grave instead of a family." Clara pulled back. He could have explained, he didn't have to. Anger choked her. "He humiliated me in front of everyone. I know. What he did was cruel. But Frank, he's terrified it'll happen again. That's not an excuse. Just the truth. The truth." Clara laughed bitterly, as if truth mattered when you were ruined. Martha Coldwell had the news by sunset. Clara was at the general store 2 days later when Martha swept in, her voice pitched to Carrie. "Well, well, the mystery is solved." Martha's smile was venomous, not fat. Just a pregnant whore looking for a fool to claim another man's bastard. The store went silent. Clara's hands clenched. "That's not. Isn't it you lied to all of us? Mail-order bride?" Martha laughed. "You're just a ruined girl who thought she could trick some desperate rancher into playing daddy." Something snapped inside Clara. 6 weeks of humiliation. 6 weeks of biting her tongue. 6 weeks of being called names, judged, diminished. Her palm cracked across Martha's face. Martha shrieked. "Assault someone, get Deputy Miller. She assaulted me." Frank arrived within minutes, his smile predatory. "Clara Whitmore, you're under arrest." The cell was 6 feet by 8 feet, with a bucket in the corner and a cot that smelled of vomit. Frank locked the door, then dismissed the day deputy. They were alone. He stood at the bars, too close. "I could make this go away. The charges, the petition Martha's starting to get you thrown out of town." His eyes crawled over her. "If you're nice to me." Clara's stomach turned. "I'd rather hang." Frank's expression darkened. He kicked the water bucket, soaking her skirt. "Ungrateful bitch. You'll rot in here." She spent 24 hours in that cell. No food, no privacy. When she needed the bucket. Frank watched. The door slammed open the next morning. Ethan Cole filled the doorframe, his face carved from stone. "Let her go." Frank leaned back in his chair. "Oh." The silent cowboy finally found his voice. "She your whore now, Cole?" Ethan moved so fast, Clara barely saw it. His fist connected with Frank's nose, a wet crunch. Blood sprayed. Frank went down hard, scrambling backward. "You son of a," Sheriff Johnson burst in. "That's enough." He was older than Frank, harder, with eyes that had seen too much to be fooled by a badge. "Frank, get Doc Patterson for that nose. Cole, you're damn lucky I like you. Miss Whitmore, you're free to go." Martha Coldwell's dropped charges. Outside, Clara's legs nearly gave out. Ethan steadied her with a hand on her elbow, then immediately pulled away. "Why did you do that?" Clara's voice shook. Ethan stared at the horizon. "Because somebody should have done it sooner." They walked back to the stable in silence. Clara's whole body trembled, fear, exhaustion, relief, all tangled together. When they reached the loft, she finally broke. "Why are you helping me? I'm nothing but trouble. I'm pregnant. I'm ruined. My wife Sarah and my daughter Annabelle died 3 years ago." Clara stopped breathing. Ethan's voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands shook. "Diphtheria outbreak while I was on a cattle drive. I came home to 2 fresh graves. Sarah was 26. Annabelle was 4 years old." He finally looked at Clara. "They died April 15th, the day you arrived in Red Mesa. You think it's a sign. I think," his voice broke, "I think God gave me a reason to wake up again. For the first time in 3 years, I want to see tomorrow." Clara couldn't speak, couldn't move. Henderson appeared in the stable doorway, leaning heavily on the frame. His face was gray. "Need to tell you both something." He coughed wet, rattling. "Clara, I'm Sarah's father, Ethan's father-in-law." The world tilted. "I helped you because watching Ethan die inside was killing me too." Henderson wiped blood from his lips. "I'm dying. Heart disease. 3 months, maybe less. This stable, this business, it's yours, both of yours, but you've got to make it work." "The taxes," Clara whispered. "You said $500, due in 45 days. Henderson slumped. "I don't have it. Never did." Clara's stolen gold, Henderson's debt, the baby coming in 3 months. The math was impossible. "We'll figure it out," Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. They didn't figure it out. Martha's petition gained signatures. Half the town wanted Clara gone. Business at the stable dropped by half. People didn't want to be associated with that pregnant woman. Clara's sewing work vanished. Martha had poisoned every well. Thomas Garrett watched from shadows, but never approached. Deputy Frank circled like a vulture. The 45-day deadline became 40 days. 35, 30. Henderson collapsed one morning, blood on his lips. The doctor said the next heart attack would be his last. Clara counted their money, $83 total. They needed $500. The gap was insurmountable. On the 36th day, Clara stood on the bridge over Red Creek, staring at the water below. The current was fast from recent rains, deep enough, quick enough. If she disappeared, Ethan could sell everything. Start over. Her baby wouldn't grow up wearing shame like a second skin. She climbed onto the railing, footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. Ethan sat down on the railing beside her, said nothing. They stayed there for 2 hours as the sun set and rose again. Finally, he placed his hand over hers. Clara wept. Ethan held her. No words, just presence. Dawn was breaking when Pastor Tyler found them. "Ethan, you need to come. Frank arrested you. Says you tried to poison him. He's pressing charges." Clara couldn't breathe. Ethan was all she had left. Now he was gone too. But that night, as Clara lay sleepless in the loft, a new smell crept through the darkness. Smoke. She sat up. Orange light flickered through the stable walls. Fire. "Clara." Ethan's voice, hoarse with panic. "Get out." She stumbled to the edge of the loft, saw flames crawling up the west wall. The horses screamed, and in the back room where Henderson slept, smoke poured from under the door. He was trapped. Clara looked at the ladder to safety, then at Henderson's door. The baby kicked hard against her ribs. She ran toward the fire. Clara burst through Henderson's door. Smoke choked her lungs. The old man lay on the floor, unconscious, his face gray. She grabbed his arms and pulled, but he was dead weight. The flames crept closer, eating through the wooden walls. "Clara, no." Ethan appeared behind her, shoving her aside. He lifted Henderson like a child and ran. Clara followed, coughing, her eyes streaming. Behind them, the back wall collapsed in a shower of sparks. They made it out as neighbors arrived with buckets. For 2 hours they fought the blaze. When dawn broke, a third of the stable was charred ruin. 2 horses dead, 4 injured. The air reeked of burnt wood and flesh. In the ashes, Ethan found an oil can. Initials carved into the handle, FM. "Frank Miller," Clara whispered, but there was no proof. Just a can that could have come from anywhere. Sheriff Johnson examined it, shook his head. Not enough for an arrest. Henderson woke in agony, clutching his chest. Doc Patterson worked over him for an hour, then pulled Clara and Ethan aside. His heart can't take another shock. The next attack will kill him. Keep him calm, keep him resting, and pray. The bill was $30. They didn't have it. Damage estimate for the stable, $200 minimum. The injured horses needed veterinary care, another $50. Income dropped immediately. No one wanted to board horses in a half-burned stable. What had been $20 a week became $6. Clara tried to take on more sewing, but Martha Coldwell moved faster. She appeared at the boarding house where Clara delivered a finished dress, grabbed the garment from the customer's hands, and tore it down the middle. "Look at this shoddy stitching, and she overcharges." Martha turned to the horrified woman. "She stole the fabric too. I have witnesses." "That's a lie." Can you prove where you bought the cloth? Do you have receipts?" Clara had bought the fabric from an itinerant peddler. No receipt, no proof. Word spread within hours. Every sewing commission canceled. No one would risk Martha's wrath. Deputy Frank grew bolder. He followed Clara to the market, standing too close, breathing down her neck. He showed up at the stable every evening, lingering, watching. When Ethan was away delivering a horse, Frank cornered Clara in the tack room. Heard you lost all your money. Shame. His smile was cruel. A woman in your condition needs protection. Get out. He grabbed her wrist. I'm not done. She shoved him hard. He stumbled back, surprised. But his eyes promised retribution. The next morning, Ethan's saddle girth was cut nearly through. He discovered it only when mounting the leather gave way, and he fell hard. His horse spooked. He could have broken his neck. Frank did this, Clara said, examining the clean slice. Can't prove it. Ethan's voice was hollow. Thomas Garrett appeared at the stable on day 49. Clara's heart leaped. Maybe he'd help. Maybe I can't. Thomas wouldn't meet her eyes. Martha knows things about me, about the night Sarah died. If I help you, she'll tell the whole town that I killed my wife. Did you? No. But I wasn't there when she needed me. I was drunk in a saloon while she screamed. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, Clara. I'm a coward. I can't do this again. He left. Clara watched him go, anger and pity warring in her chest. She found the diary while cleaning Henderson's room. Small, leather-bound, hidden under a loose floorboard. Annabelle Cole, written in careful child's printing on the first page. Clara almost put it back, but something made her open to the last entry. May 15th, 1880. Daddy left for the cattle drive. The bad man came again. He has a star on his shirt. Mama told him to go away, but he wouldn't. He keeps bringing Mama flowers, and she cries after he leaves. I'm scared. I told Mama, but she said don't tell Daddy. It will only make it worse. I wish Daddy would come home. The next entry was blank, because 3 days later, Annabelle and Sarah were dead. Not diphtheria. Murder. The bad man with a star on his shirt, Deputy Frank Miller. Clara's hands shook. She should tell Ethan, but he was barely holding together. This would destroy him. Or worse, he'd kill Frank and hang for it. She hid the diary back where she'd found it. Their money situation became catastrophic. Henderson couldn't work. Ethan did the work of 3 men, and it still wasn't enough. Clara worked until her hands bled. But there were no customers. She was 7 months pregnant now, unable to hide it. People crossed the street to avoid her. On day 53, Clara counted their money $5. That was everything. They owed $500 in taxes, due in 12 days, $200 for stable repairs, $30 for Henderson's medicine, $50 for horse care, $780 total. They had 5. The math was impossible. The situation was impossible. Martha's petition had gained 50 signatures. The town council set a hearing for June 15th, 9 days away. If the petition passed, Clara would have 1 week to leave Red Mesa. 7 months pregnant, no money, nowhere to go. Pastor Tyler tried to organize counter-support, but fear of Martha's wrath kept people silent. I'm sorry, he said, eyes sad. I've got 20 names. She's got 50. That night, Clara walked to the Red Creek Bridge again. The water was dark below, rushing fast. She climbed onto the railing. Her baby kicked hard, insistent, a reminder of life. But what kind of life born to a ruined mother in a town that hated her growing up, knowing she was unwanted, a burden, a mistake? Maybe it would be kinder to end it now. Clara. She didn't turn. Ethan sat beside her on the railing, exactly as before. Silent. Present. They sat as the stars wheeled overhead. Clara cried until she had no tears left. Ethan's hand covered hers, warm, steady. "I destroy everything," she whispered. "Everyone." "No." His voice was rough. "You saved Henderson. You saved me. You're the strongest person I know." "I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about feeling. It's about getting up anyway." But getting up required something to fight for. And Clara was so tired of fighting. Sheriff Johnson came to the stable on day 56, his face grim. He held an official document. Court order. If you can't pay $500 by June 20th, the county seizes this property. He paused. "I'm sorry, Miss Whitmore. Ethan. I truly am." Henderson wept. Clara had never seen him cry. The old man who'd given her a chance, who'd been a father when her own had rejected her, sat in his chair and sobbed. Ethan punched the stable wall. His knuckles split, blood running down his fingers. He stood there, forehead pressed against the wood, shoulders shaking. Clara sank to the floor. She had nothing left, no fight, no hope, no future. "I should never have come west," she said to no one. "I ruin everything I touch." That evening, as darkness fell, and Clara sat numbly in the loft, heavy footsteps pounded up the ladder. Pastor Tyler's face was pale, urgent. "Miss Clara, Deputy Frank just arrested Ethan. He's claiming Ethan tried to poison him with arsenic." Tyler's voice shook. "Frank says he has witnesses. Says he's been sick for days from small doses Ethan's been putting in his coffee." Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Ethan. The only good thing left in her life. The only person who'd stood by her. Gone. "They're taking him to county jail in the morning." Tyler continued. "He'll hang if Frank can make the charges stick." Clara didn't cry. Something inside her had calcified during that night in the cell, during the fire, during the long hours on the bridge. Tears were a luxury she could no longer afford. She walked to the sheriff's office, sat on the steps. Frank came out at dawn, smirking when he saw her. "Visiting hours are... I'll wait." He shrugged and went inside. Clara stayed. The sun rose, heat built, her back ached. The baby pressed against her bladder. She didn't move. Sheriff Johnson arrived at due 8. "Miss Whitmore, I want to see Ethan." Johnson studied her face, then nodded. 5 minutes. Ethan gripped the cell bars. "Clara, you shouldn't..." "Tell me everything Frank's been doing. Every time he's been near your coffee, your food, anything." "He hasn't. That's what makes this insane. I haven't been anywhere near him except that day I hit him." Clara's mind worked. Frank bought something 3 days ago. The peddler mentioned it, rat poison. She met Ethan's eyes. What if Frank poisoned himself just enough to get sick? Blamed you. You can't prove, not yet. She left before her 5 minutes were up. Mrs. Maple was setting up her vegetable stand in the market square. Clara approached, shoulders straight despite exhaustion. "I need help." Mrs. Maple looked at her, really looked, saw the transformation. "What do you need, honey?" "A petition to counter Martha's." and I need you to organize the people Martha can't intimidate." Within an hour, Mrs. Maple had gathered 15 women. The poor, the outcasts, the ones with nothing to lose. "Martha Coldwell thinks she owns this town," Clara told them. "She doesn't. We do. Every person who's been looked down on, dismissed, judged. We're the backbone of Red Mesa. Not her." They dispersed through town, gathering signatures, 20 names by noon, 30 by sunset. Pastor Tyler preached that Sunday. This town has a chance to show grace or judgment, to lift up or tear down. Choose carefully. God is watching. His eyes found Martha in the front pew. She flushed and looked away. Thomas Garrett stood up. The whole church turned. I was a coward. His voice cracked. I humiliated an innocent woman because I was too afraid to face my own grief. Martha Coldwell has poisoned this town long enough. I won't let her speak for me anymore. He walked out during the service. An hour later, he appeared at the stable with a cloth bag. $150? Everything I have. He placed it in Clara's hands. It's not enough, but it's all I can offer. I'm sorry. God. Clara. I'm so sorry. Clara's throat closed. She took the money. Thank you. I don't deserve no. You don't. But you're trying. That counts for something. Thomas laughed. But she saw his shoulders straighten. Redemption, however small. Clara investigated like her life depended on it. Because it did. The peddler confirmed Frank bought arsenic. Said he had rats in his cellar. Bought enough to kill 100 of them. The saloon keeper remembered Frank drinking alone for 3 days straight. Kept holding his stomach. Thought he was just hungover. Doc Patterson, when pressed, admitted Frank's symptoms were consistent with self-administered small doses. But I can't prove intent, just that he was poisoned. Clara found the bottle in Frank's own trash heap behind the jail. Still had traces of arsenic. She wrapped it carefully in cloth. That evening, she waited until Frank was alone on night duty. Walked into the sheriff's office with the bottle. Sarah Cole didn't die of diphtheria. Frank's head snapped up. What? I found Annabelle's diary. The bad man with the star on his shirt. That was you. Wasn't it you killed them both because Sarah rejected you? Frank stood slowly. The office suddenly felt very small. You can't prove anything. His hand moved to his gun belt. Just the imaginings of a dead child. Sarah told her daughter not to tell Ethan. Why? Because she knew you'd hurt him if he found out you were harassing her. Frank stepped closer. Clara held her ground, though her heart hammered. You're too smart for your own good. His voice was soft, dangerous. Pregnant women are fragile. Accidents happen. Is that a threat? It's a promise. The door opened. Sheriff Johnson stood there, face like thunder. Behind him, Pastor Tyler. Frank. Johnson's voice was ice. Step away from her. Sheriff? She's making wild accusations. I heard every word. Tyler came to get me, said he was worried about Miss Whitmore coming here alone. Johnson's hand rested on his own gun. The diary. Where is it? Clara pulled it from her apron. Henderson's room. Under the floorboard. Johnson read the entry, his face darkening. Frank Miller. I'm suspending you pending investigation into the deaths of Sarah and Annabelle Cole. You can't. I can, and I am. Badge. Gun. Now. Frank's face contorted with rage, but he complied. As he stormed out, he turned back to Clara. This isn't over. But it was. Sheriff Johnson would dig, and Clara knew what he'd find. The community fundraiser happened 3 days later. Mrs. Maple organized a barn dance. People brought handmade goods to sell: quilts, preserves, carved wood. Children performed songs Clara had taught them. Even those too poor to buy donated pennies, nickels, dimes. "It ain't much," said a gaunt farmer, pressing 2 dimes into Clara's palm. "But it's from the heart." By evening's end, they'd raised $80, combined with Thomas's contribution and their savings. They had $235. Still $265 short. Then Ethan sold his horse. Not just any horse, the one his father had given him. The last connection to his past. He got $120 for it. Clara watched him walk back to the stable on foot, eyes dry but devastated. "You didn't have to—" "Yes, I did." He took her hand. "We're in this together." $355. $145 short. Sheriff Johnson released Ethan on day 60. No evidence. Frank can't produce witnesses. And the bottle Miss Whitmore found has Frank's fingerprints all over it. Ethan emerged from the jail, thinner, exhausted. He and Clara stood facing each other in the street. No embrace, no tears. Just Ethan reaching for her hand, holding it tight. "We're going to make it," he said. Clara wanted to believe him. The Apache came on day 61. 5 riders appeared on the Mesa Ridge at dawn. The town panicked, but Clara recognized the lead rider, Ashki, the young warrior she'd smiled at weeks ago in the market when everyone else had turned away. He rode directly to the stable. Pastor Tyler came to translate. "My mother was white, taken from a wagon train when she was 16. Ashki's voice was measured. "She died last winter. You were kind when others feared. I bring payment." He handed Clara 5 perfectly tanned hides. "Trade. You sow, you sell. Fair price." Clara's hands trembled as she examined them. High quality, worth at least $30 each to the right buyer. "I'll make you something beautiful." She worked for 48 hours straight. No sleep. Her fingers bled, but she kept going. Ethan helped stretch and prepare the leather. Henderson, from his sickbed, designed patterns. The traveling merchant arrived on schedule, took one look at Clara's work and whistled. "Finest leather goods I've seen. I'll give you $150 for all 5. Exactly what they needed. Clara added it to their pile. $505. Enough for the taxes. Finally, enough. On day 63, June 20th, she and Ethan walked to the county office. Clara carried the money in a cloth bag. Every penny they'd scraped together through blood and tears and community grace. The clerk looked at his ledger, then at them. His expression was apologetic. "I'm sorry. The debt was transferred yesterday to a private holder. You'll need to pay them directly." Clara's stomach dropped. "Who? Mrs. Martha Coldwell? She bought your debt at auction." The clerk shifted uncomfortably. "She has the right to demand immediate payment or seize the property." The door opened behind them. Martha Coldwell stepped inside, immaculate in emerald silk. Her smile was a knife. "Hello, Miss Whitmore, Mr. Cole. Shall we discuss terms?" Martha set a document on the clerk's desk. $505. That's what you have, isn't it? Her eyes glittered. I'm offering different terms? We have your money, Ethan said, his voice controlled fury. Take it. Oh, I don't want money. Martha's smile widened. I want her gone. Clara Whitmore leaves Red Mesa today, never returns, and I'll forgive the entire debt. She turned to Clara. Otherwise, I exercise my right to seize the property immediately. You'll have nothing. That's extortion. Clara said, That's business. You have 1 hour to decide. Pastor Tyler burst through the door. Emergency town meeting. Now. Everyone's gathering at the church. Martha's confident smile faltered. What meeting? The church was packed. 70 people crammed into pews meant for 50. Clara stood at the front, Ethan beside her. Martha positioned herself in the front row, spine rigid. Pastor Tyler called for order. Martha Coldwell has demanded Clara Whitmore leave our town. I'm asking this community, is that who we are? She's an unwed mother. Martha stood, a liar, who came here under false pretenses. She's immoral and she mended my son's only shirt when I couldn't afford a seamstress. A thin woman called out. She sat with my mother when she was dying. Didn't charge a penny. Another voice added. She gave me $2 for medicine. Told me to pay her back whenever I could. I never did. She never asked. One by one. People stood, the poor, the overlooked, the forgotten. Every person Clara had helped without expecting anything in return. Mrs. Maple rose, her voice carrying. Clara Whitmore has more decency in her little finger than you have in your whole body. Martha Coldwell, and I'll sign any petition that says she stays. She's right. Thomas Garrett stood, his face pale but determined. I was the first to wrong Clara, and I've regretted it every day since. If anyone should leave, it's me, not her. Martha's face flushed crimson. This is Sheriff Johnson entered, boots heavy on the wooden floor. His face was grim. Need to make an announcement, relevant to this discussion. The room went silent. I exhumed Sarah and Annabelle Cole. With proper authority and Ethan's permission. Johnson's voice was steady. Medical examiner found arsenic in both bodies, high concentrations. This wasn't diphtheria, this was murder. The church erupted. Ethan's face went white. He gripped the pew in front of him. Deputy Frank Miller. Johnson continued. You're under arrest for the murders of Sarah Cole and Annabelle Cole. Frank stood at the back of the church. No one had noticed him enter. His hand moved to his holster, but he'd been stripped of his badge. He had no gun. He bolted for the door. Stop him! Johnson shouted. Frank grabbed Clara as she moved toward Ethan, his arm locked around her throat, a knife appearing from his boot pressed against her swollen belly. Everybody stay back. Frank's voice cracked with desperation. I'm leaving. She's coming with me. Ethan moved forward. Take me instead. You. Frank laughed, high and manic. You took everything from me. Sarah was supposed to be mine. She loved me, not you. But you came along with your quiet cowboy act and she... His voice broke. She laughed at me, said she could never love a man like me. So I made sure she couldn't love anyone. You killed a 4-year-old child? Clara whispered. Collateral damage. The knife pressed harder. Clara felt it through her dress. Now move. Ethan's hands rose slowly. Frank, you've lost. Let her go. Take me. You want revenge. Here I am. I don't want revenge anymore. Frank's voice turned cold. I want out. He dragged Clara toward the door. She stumbled, her body screaming protest. The knife bit into her dress. People parted, too afraid to intervene. Then Ethan moved. He lunged between them, shoving Clara away. Frank's knife slashed wild, the gunshot from where cracked through the church. Frank had grabbed someone's pistol. The bullet caught Ethan in the shoulder, spinning him. He hit the floor hard. Chaos erupted. Men swarmed Frank, wrestled him down. The knife clattered away. Sheriff Johnson had him in irons within seconds. But Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Pain sudden, sharp, radiating from her abdomen doubled her over. "No," she gasped. "No, not now." Her water broke. Clear fluid pooled on the church floor. "Oh, Lord." Mrs. Maple rushed forward. "The baby's coming." "Get Doc Patterson," someone shouted. "He's 40 miles away and Santa Rosa won't make it back in time." Clara collapsed, contractions seizing her body. Too fast, too strong. The baby was coming now. Thomas Garrett pushed through the crowd. "I have the fastest horse in the territory. I'll get Doc Patterson." "Thomas, it's 40 miles. "Then I'd better ride fast." He was already moving. "Clara, hold on, please. Let me do this one thing right." He vanished into the dying light. They carried Clara to the stable, couldn't move her farther. Mrs. Maple took charge. Barking orders. Women brought water, clean cloths, blankets. Ethan, his shoulder hastily bandaged, refused to leave. "I'm staying," he said, gray with pain and blood loss. "Ethan, you're hurt." "I wasn't there when Sarah died. I won't leave Clara." His jaw set. "I'm staying." The labor was agony. Clara had never felt pain like this, tearing, relentless, consuming. She screamed until her voice went hoarse. Ethan held her hand, let her crush his fingers, whispered words she couldn't hear over her own cries. The baby's crowning. Mrs. Maple positioned herself. "Clara, push." Clara pushed, her body split apart. The world narrowed to pain and pressure and the desperate need to survive this. The baby emerged in a rush of fluid and blood. Mrs. Maple caught her, but silence. The baby wasn't crying. "No," Clara sobbed. "No. Please." Ethan took the infant in shaking hands. He'd learned this from Apache healers years ago, something about clearing airways, stimulating breath. He turned the baby over, rubbed her back, breathed gently into her tiny nose. 30 seconds, an eternity. Then a cough, a whimper, a wail. The baby cried, lusty and strong. The room erupted in cheers, tears, prayers. But something was wrong. Clara felt wetness, too much of it. Warm, spreading. "She's hemorrhaging." Mrs. Maple's voice went sharp with fear. "I can't stop it, there's too much blood." Clara's vision blurred. She heard voices from far away. Ethan calling her name, Mrs. Maple giving orders. The baby crying alive. At least her baby was alive. The edges of the world darkened. She was so tired, so ready to rest. "Clara." Ethan's face appeared above hers. "Stay with me, please. Don't leave me again. I can't lose you too." But the darkness was gentle, welcoming. She started to let go. Hoofbeats, thundering, desperate. Thomas crashed through the stable door. Doc Patterson behind him. Thomas's horse collapsed outside, foam-covered, dying from the effort. Doc took one look at Clara and moved with swift efficiency. 45 minutes of work, 45 minutes where no one breathed. Finally, Doc straightened. "She'll live, barely, but she'll live." The room exhaled as one. Clara woke hours later, weak as water. Ethan sat beside her, cradling a tiny bundle. "It's a girl," he whispered. Clara's lips moved. "Name? Rose. After your grandmother." Ethan's voice cracked. "And Annabelle as her middle name. Rose Annabelle Cole." He looked at her. "If you'll have us. If you'll marry me." "Yes." Clara's tears fell. "Yes." Sheriff Johnson arrested Martha that evening. Frank confessed to everything, including that you paid him to terrorize Clara. Conspiracy charges. Martha's husband filed for divorce the next morning. She was escorted out of Red Mesa in disgrace, exactly what she'd wanted to do to Clara. The town celebrated that night. Impromptu gathering at the stable, food, music, joy. Ashke returned with his people, bringing a woven blanket for baby Rose. Pastor Tyler performed an engagement ceremony right there. Clara still in her blood-stained dress, Ethan's shoulder bandaged. "I've never seen love tested like this," Tyler said, "or proven so true." As the sun set over Red Mesa, Clara held her daughter and looked at Ethan, the quiet cowboy who'd seen her when no one else would. They'd survived. Against impossible odds. They'd survived. 1 week later, a letter arrived from Boston. Clara's mother's handwriting. Ethan found her staring at it. "Do you want to open it?" Clara looked at the envelope, then at Ethan, at baby Rose sleeping peacefully, at the stable that was now home. She smiled. Clara opened the letter 3 months later. By then, autumn had painted the mesa gold and crimson. The stable bore a new sign, Henderson and Cole livery, family-owned. The burned section had been rebuilt with help from the community. Business thrived again. Mr. Henderson passed peacefully in his sleep on September 1st. They found him in his chair, a smile on his weathered face, baby Rose's blanket clutched in his hands. He'd lived just long enough to see Ethan happy again. The funeral drew the entire town. Ethan placed his hand on the coffin. "Thank you for giving me a family again, Pa." Clara and Ethan married the following week. Simple ceremony in the church, Rose sleeping in Mrs. Maple's arms. Clara wore a dress she'd sewn herself cream-colored, with lace from her grandmother's wedding gown sewn into the hem. Ethan wore his father's suit, altered to fit, when Pastor Tyler pronounced them husband and wife. Ethan kissed Clara softly, reverently, as though she might disappear. "I've got you," he whispered. "Forever." The business flourished. Clara opened a small seamstress shop adjacent to the stable. Within weeks, she had more work than she could handle. She hired 2 women from the poorest families, gave them fair wages and dignity. The livery earned $60 monthly. The sewing brought in another $30. For the first time in her life, Clara wasn't afraid of the next month's bills. Thomas Garrett found his own redemption. He courted Miss Sarah Miller, the schoolteacher who was too tall by society's standards, who'd watched her own romantic prospects dry up year after year. They understood each other's loneliness. Their wedding was scheduled for mid-October. Thomas came to Clara one afternoon, hat in hand. "Would you? I know I have no right to ask. But would you stand up with us as a witness?" Clara studied the man who'd rejected her so cruelly, who'd ridden through the night to save her life. People were complicated. Redemption was possible. "I'd be honored." His eyes filled. "Thank you. I don't deserve, none of us deserve grace, Thomas. That's what makes it grace." Frank Miller was sentenced to life in prison. before they transported him to the territorial penitentiary. He wrote a letter to Ethan. Clara found it on the table, unopened. "Are you going to read it?" she asked. Ethan fed it to the stove fire. "The past is past. I choose to look forward." Clara understood. Some wounds didn't need reopening to heal. Martha Coldwell's fate carried its own justice. Divorced, disgraced. She left New Mexico entirely. Word filtered back months later she'd become a mail-order bride herself, shipped to a mining camp in Montana. Her new husband was cruel, her circumstances desperate. "I should feel sorry for her," Clara said when she heard. "Should you?" Ethan asked. "No." Clara bounced Rose on her hip. "I don't." The Apache connection deepened. Ashkey visited monthly, trading goods, sharing knowledge. He taught Ethan advanced leatherworking. Clara learned beadwork from the women. The tribe began coming into Red Mesa for supplies without fear. Slowly, prejudice eroded. Not completely, never completely, but enough. Ashkey held Rose one afternoon, his scarred hands gentle. "She has warrior spirit, like her mother." "Her mother's just stubborn," Clara said. "Same thing." The letter from Boston sat unopened for 3 months because Clara already knew what it would say. Apologies. Regrets. Probably a request to meet baby Rose. Maybe an inheritance her father had been wealthy. She finally opened it on a quiet October evening. Ethan sat beside her, Rose sleeping in her cradle. "Dearest Clara, your father passed in August. Heart attack. Before he died, he asked me to find you, to tell you he was sorry. I know that's not enough. Nothing I say will undo what we did casting you out, calling you shameful, failing you when you needed us most. Your brother Marcus asks about you constantly. He's 16 now. He wants to know his sister. Your father left you $3,000. It's yours regardless of whether you ever speak to us again. If you can find it in your heart to let us meet our granddaughter, we would travel to you, on your terms, at your convenience. If not, we understand. With deepest regret." Mother Clara read it twice. Ethan waited, patient. They want to visit, to meet Rose. "What do you want?" Clara looked around their small home, the stable apartment they'd expanded. The cradle Ethan built by hand, the wedding photograph on the wall. This was family. This was home. "I want them to come here, to see what I built after they threw me away, to see that I didn't need their approval to be happy." She met Ethan's eyes. "But I'm willing to try. For Rose's sake, if not for mine. Then we'll try." Her mother and brother arrived 3 weeks later. Helen Whitmore stepped off the stagecoach looking older, frailer. Marcus was tall, gangly, nervous. The first meeting was awkward. Stiff hugs, careful words. But when Helen held Rose for the first time, she wept. "I'm so sorry. Clara, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was cruel. I know." Clara's voice was steady. "I'm not ready to forgive everything, but I'm willing to try." They stayed a week. Helen helped in the sewing shop. Marcus learned stable work from Ethan. Slowly, cautiously, bridges began to rebuild. Not all the way, maybe never all the way, but enough. When they left for Boston, Helen embraced Clara tightly. "You've become an extraordinary woman. No thanks to me." "No," Clara agreed. "No thanks to you." But there was no bitterness in it, just truth. Thanksgiving arrived with cool desert winds and clear skies. They set a long table outside the stable. Clara, Ethan, and Rose. Mrs. Maple and Pastor Tyler. Thomas and Sarah, newly married and glowing. Ashkey, representing his people. A dozen others who'd stood by them. As the sun painted the mesa crimson, they shared what they were grateful for. Ethan, second chances. Clara, rejection that led me home. Thomas, forgiveness I didn't deserve. Mrs. Maple, chosen family. Pastor Tyler, God writes straight with crooked lines. Ashkey, through translation, bridges between peoples. Rose chose that moment to smile her first real smile. The table fell silent, watching. Ethan's hand found Clara's. Look at what we made, he whispered. Look at what we survived to make. The following week, Clara walked to the Red Mesa depot. A stagecoach pulled in, and a young woman stepped down, 20 at most, eyes wide with hope and fear. A man waited on the platform. His face, when he saw her, twisted with disgust. I asked for someone pretty, he said loudly. Not you. The girl's face crumbled. Clara stepped forward. If he rejects you, come find me at Henderson and Cole livery. There's always room for one more. The girl looked at Clara, saw the baby on her hip, the confidence in her stance, the peace in her eyes. Really, don't let anyone make you feel small. You're worth more than his approval. The girl straightened her shoulders, picked up her valise, and walked away from the man who'd rejected her. Clara smiled. Full circle. 1 year after her arrival in Red Mesa. Clara stood for a family portrait. The traveling photographer had come through town again. Ethan held Rose, now 15 months old, walking and babbling. Clara stood beside them, her hand on Ethan's arm. Behind them, the stable, the business, the life they'd built together. Say home, the photographer called. Clara didn't say anything. She just thought home isn't where you're from. Home is where you're loved, where you're seen, where you belong. The shutter clicked. They belonged here. Finally. Completely. Undeniably, they belonged. That night, Clara found the letter Thomas had written her before she ever left Boston, the one that had brought her west. She framed it alongside a note she'd written herself. Thank you for saying no. It led me to my yes. Beneath it, their wedding photograph. Clara, Ethan, and Rose, smiling in front of Henderson and Cole livery. Sometimes the worst day of your life is the first day of your best life. Sometimes the person who rejects you saves you from the wrong path. Sometimes home is built, not found. And sometimes, just sometimes, the quiet cowboy who sees your worth is worth more than 1,000 loud promises from men who only see your surface. Clara placed her hand over Ethan's as they watched the sunset paint the mesa gold. No regrets, he asked. She thought of Boston, of Thomas's rejection, of every humiliation, every tear, every moment she'd wanted to give up. Not a single one, she said. It all led here. And here was exactly where she was meant to be. Folks, that's how Clara Whitmore became Clara Cole. How a woman rejected for being too fat found a man who saw her heart. How a town learned that grace matters more than gossip. How the worst rejection became the greatest blessing. Sometimes your Thomas Garrett isn't your Ethan Cole. Sometimes the person who says no is saving you for someone who'll say yes forever. I know some of you have stood where Clara stood, been judged by your appearance, felt unwanted, wondered if you'd ever find home. Maybe you're standing there right now. Here's what I want you to remember. Your worth isn't determined by who rejects you. It's determined by how you rise after the fall. Clara kept that rejection letter, framed it, not out of bitterness, but gratitude, because it led her exactly where she needed to be. Have you ever been rejected and later realized it was a blessing in disguise? Who was your Ethan, the person who saw you when no one else would share your story in the comments? Someone needs to hear it today. And if you're the one feeling rejected right now, hold on. Your Red Mesa is coming. Your Ethan is coming. Don't give up before you get there. Sometimes the best love story starts with the worst rejection. Sometimes home isn't where you're from, it's where someone finally sees you and says, "Stay."